15 miles north of Uniontown in the Hawkins Hollow area, a man named James L. Grimm made a shocking discovery 35 years ago. His two dogs in his backyard playing with a human skull. That skull belonged to a then missing 24-year-old woman named Elizabeth Berquist. Now, 35 years later, investigators are still trying to work out the details of how her skull got from Elizabeth Township, where she was last seen alive, to this spot near Normalville, about 40 miles away. The rest of Elizabeth's body was never found, and the circumstances surrounding her death remain undetermined. We sat down with Elizabeth's daughter, Tara Berquist-Kite, to learn more about what happened to her mother.
My grandparents did raise me, and I was fortunate for that. They were good to me. That first Christmas, she went missing December 15th, I believe. It was 10 days before Christmas. She already had all of my Christmas presents bought. She was excited about it because that was the first year that I was really going to experience what Christmas was like. There's mountains of toys and a Christmas tree, and everybody is just sitting there very solemn, and you could see there's very little joy that's coming through. And I mean, I can imagine what that was like. As far as them speaking to me about it, no, not at all. They didn't talk about it. Probably, I would guess, just to protect me. I mean, how do you go about approaching that? Now, as I got older, I did, other people in the neighborhood knew, and kids would mention things to me, and eventually I started asking questions. And they would get answered short. I'm sure it was too painful for them. I mean, I know it was my grandmother. It was very painful for her. That was her child. And she never enjoyed Christmas from that point on. And she just passed away December 2012. And leading up to that, she suffered from dementia. And she could go and she wouldn't know where she was or what your name was, but she remembered that. It's almost like a cruel joke. She could remember that happened. Until about a year prior to her passing did she finally forget it. And it was almost like a relief, that burden was taken from her. What would it have been like to just, get to know her? I mean, I didn't know her. And a lot of people who did say wonderful things about her. And I feel like I was robbed of that chance.
We spoke with Trooper John F. Marshall, the lead investigator in the case, about the progress they're making in determining the cause of Elizabeth's death.
The flyer states subject was last seen 7:30 p.m., December 15th, 1977, at the home of her parents in Elizabeth Township. At the time of her disappearance, she was dressed in a nurse's uniform, which was later found in her apartment. And it is not known what type of clothing she changed into before leaving her apartment. There was no signs of struggle, and her car still parked in front of the apartment. We're showing a day of occurrence for this one as April 15th, 1978, which was a Saturday. This case shows a Mr. James L. Grimm of Normalville. Incident observed his two dogs playing with a skull in his front yard. And that would have been like Township 808 in Springfield Township, Fayette County, in the area of Normalville. Showed no signs of past disappearance. And never returned for her child, and never returned to work at the McKeesport Hospital.
They all said that she was outgoing, fun, lively. Everybody described her as well-liked. She had lots of friends and kept people laughing, from what I understand. She was probably the most outgoing of all of them.
And the state police were called along with the deputy coroner's office. They did an investigation with the skull, and it showed to be, from the Elizabeth Police Department, it showed to be a missing persons, Elizabeth Jane Berquist. I'm sure the body was buried, and animals got, and they started digging the body up, just got the head.
I did always feel amiss, that I was searching for something and that there was always a void that I couldn't seem to fill. But oftentimes I think about it, and oftentimes I think, how can I bring closure to this part of my life? Because although my life was complete in a lot of ways, it was very incomplete. If there was one thing that I would want to, plead, is if somebody, if whoever did this, if they could just take a minute to think about how, they didn't just take her life, they took a lot of mine. And everybody else that was in contact with her. Every single one of them is broken. You try to create a normal life, but you're just broken. I know that eventually whoever is responsible will have some sort of punishment. It'll come eventually, whether it be here or there. Eventually, somebody will have to pay for their sins. She was a person. She was a friend. She was a daughter. She was a mother. And I don't think that her life was expendable. Yeah, I think it's worth finding the answers.